MBDAA at exactly C. Lingadium, a major incident occurred deep inside Russia that few had expected. The skies over Tatarstan were suddenly lit by a massive explosion. This was not an accident, nor a minor technical malfunction. It was a deliberate strike targeting a facility considered untouchable by Russian authorities. Within minutes, Russia's largest and most critical weapons production center was engulfed in flames. Production lines supplying key components for the military were disrupted, leaving Moscow scrambling to assess the scale of the damage. This incident immediately altered the band. The explosion turned the night sky into a wall of orange fire, visible for miles, shaking nearby buildings and alerting residents across the area. The Kazan State Military-Industrial Complex, a heavily secured site long considered safe from external attacks, was severely affected. This was a precise and coordinated strike. The target, a sprawling military-industrial hub producing essential components for drones, guided missiles, navigation systems, and electronic warfare equipment. This facility was a central node in Russia's ongoing military operations, supplying technology that supports strikes on Ukrainian cities and frontline positions. For years, Russian authorities considered this plant too distant and too protected to be at risk. Layers of air defense, security personnel, and surrounding civilian infrastructure created a sense of security. That perception was shattered in an instant. As shockwaves passed through Kazan, alarms sounded across the industrial district. Night shift workers evacuated, navigating smoke, falling debris, and structural damage. Many described the scene as a firestorm, while others reported feeling tremors from secondary explosions inside the facility. Banned Russian media quickly attempted to downplay the event, reporting it as minor and under control. However, videos taken by residents showed large columns of smoke, intense flames, and emergency crews struggling to contain the fire. Independent footage highlighted collapsed sections of the facility and chain reactions from internal stockpiles igniting. Plingius for Ukraine, this operation was not only about causing damage, but also sending a message. It demonstrated that even deep inside Russia, key infrastructure could be reached. The strike was tactical, psychological, and strategic, proving Ukraine had the technology, intelligence, and reach to target critical sites previously thought secure. In just a few minutes, a facility that once seemed untouchable was destroyed, dealing a significant blow to Russian confidence and military capacity. Blandius to truly grasp why this strike sent shockwaves through Moscow. It's essential to understand what the Kazan facility represented. No ordinary plant. The Kazan State Military-Industrial Complex was a nerve center of Russia's modern military production, a facility so critical that commanders quietly called it the engine room of the war. This was a strategic juggernaut, not a symbolic target. And inside its walls, Russia manufactured components crucial to sustaining its military operations in Ukraine. Missile guidance modules ensured rockets hit with deadly accuracy. Components for Shahed and Girion, our drones, which pounded Ukrainian cities and critical infrastructure, were produced here. Electronic warfare devices designed to jam Ukrainian communications and blind radar systems were also built in Kazan. Precision targeting chips, already scarce due to Western sanctions, came out of this facility. Even frontline missile repair systems, which allowed Russia to reuse weapons, depended on Kazan's production lines. Thousands of engineers, technicians, and specialists worked around the clock, day and night. Every missile fired at Kyiv, every drone launched at Odessa, every interference signal disrupting Ukrainian defenses relied in part on this factory. That's why Ukraine selected it as a target, not for symbolism, but for maximum strategic impact. Russian commanders had long feared this scenario. If Ukraine ever hit Kazan, production lines would collapse. What once sounded like a hypothetical nightmare became a devastating reality. Blonde hours after the attack, high-resolution satellite images confirmed the damage. Analysts describe the devastation as catastrophic. Entire buildings lay in ruins, reduced to twisted steel and rubble. Large storage depots holding drone and missile materials were obliterated. Roads leading to and from the complex were blocked by debris, and the electrical substation powering the entire facility was severely damaged. Without electricity, the production line would remain dead for months, if not longer. Boundlian experts quickly concluded this was no minor disruption. This wasn't something Russia could fix in a matter of days. This strike could erase months or even years of military manufacturing capacity. And all of this happened while Russia already struggles with sanctions, resource shortages, and technology restrictions. Many of the chips and specialized components used in Kazan were hard or nearly impossible to replace. Rebuilding destroyed machinery could take far longer than Moscow wants to admit. Blind for a nation dependent on continuous arms production to sustain a grinding war. This wasn't just a setback. It was a crippling blow. The Kremlin now faces a harsh and unavoidable reality. Rebuilding the Kazan facility will demand enormous resources, time, and money, commodities Russia does not have in abundance. Even if reconstruction succeeds, Ukraine has already proven it can strike deep into Russian territory again. This wasn't just an infrastructure attack, it was a strategic disaster with consequences that could echo for months, even years. Ukraine didn't merely damage a factory, it shattered Russia's confidence, industrial capacity, and the perception of invulnerability all at once. So, how did Ukraine manage to carry out a strike nearly east-ling kilometers from the front line? How could a country under constant attack reach the heart of Russia and hit a facility Moscow thought untouchable? The answer lies in a secret Ukrainian long-range drone program, a technological leap redefining modern warfare. For months, Ukraine has quietly developed heavy, long-endurance drones in collaboration with engineers, private tech companies, and military specialists. These aren't the small drones used for frontline skirmishes. They are precision kamikaze drones designed to travel incredible distances, penetrate deep into enemy territory, strike critical targets, and return the advantage to Ukrainian forces. Land defense analysts indicate that the Kazan strike was executed using this new generation of drones. These machines combine stealth, speed, and pinpoint accuracy. They are capable of flying extremely low to evade radar, move at high speeds to reduce interception time, and remain nearly invisible against Russian detection systems. Most impressively, they can navigate without satellite guidance, bypassing Russia's GPS jamming measures near high-value targets. Reports suggest these drones traveled hundreds of kilometers, skimming treetops and weaving through radar blind spots. They may have been launched from multiple directions, confusing Russian air defenses and forcing operators to guess the attack's origin. By the time the systems detected them, the drones were already inside the facility. Within minutes, several drones struck different sections of the complex production halls, fuel storage units, and electrical substations. The result was catastrophic, massive explosions, towering fireballs, and chain reactions as stored ammunition and fuel ignited. Russian air defenses, designed for layered protection, were completely overwhelmed by this innovative tactic. Ukrainian officials have not openly claimed responsibility, keeping Moscow guessing about their exact capabilities. Yet the message was loud and unmistakable. If Russia continues targeting Ukrainian cities, Ukraine will ensure Moscow feels the consequences on its own soil. This strike was both retaliation and a warning, a sign that Ukraine is no longer limited by geography. This was more than a tactical operation. It marked the dawn of a new phase in the war, one where distance does not guarantee safety. Ukraine demonstrated it could reach deep inside Russia, undermining the Kremlin's sense of security and control. Inside Moscow, the impact of the strike was felt immediately. Senior officials convened emergency meetings, phones rang continuously, and intelligence briefings were updated in real time. The incident did more than damage a single facility. It challenged a central assumption of Russia's military planning that key sites deep within the country were secure. Ban efforts to control information were only partially successful. Production at the Kazan plant came to a complete halt. Independent channels, often run by local observers and military analysts, shared reports showing extensive damage. Entire sections of the facility were destroyed. Electrical systems powering production lines were disabled, and thousands of workers were evacuated, many unable to return for an extended period. Critical missile components, including guidance modules, are now in short supply. For the Russian military, the operational consequences were immediate. The Kazan plant accounted for roughly 500 sensors of missile electronics used in Ukraine. Components regularly shipped to frontline repair stations and other factories for final assembly were disrupted, with creating potential delays and shortages in military operations. Analysts warn that these effects could continue for weeks or months, especially given the challenges of rebuilding specialized manufacturing equipment under sanctions. Much of the machinery relies on Western technology that is now difficult or impossible to acquire. The incident also exposed gaps in Russia's defensive posture. Officials reportedly acknowledged that long-range strikes deep into Russian territory were considered unlikely, and existing air defenses were expected to intercept incoming threats. The strike demonstrated that these assumptions no longer hold, signaling that distance alone does not guarantee protection. Bans beyond the operational impact, the strike has broader implications for national perception. It challenged the sense of security within Russia and underscored the evolving capabilities of Ukraine's long-range operations. Analysts consider the Kazan strike one of the most significant strategic disruptions Russia has faced since the start of the conflict. It highlighted the vulnerability of critical infrastructure and the potential for operational disruption far from the front lines. Beyond this single attack carries three monumental consequences, each capable of reshaping the course of the conflict. First, Russia will now scramble to reinforce security around its military factories. The Kremlin's initial response will be predictable panic, followed by desperate efforts to strengthen defenses. Air defense systems, radars, and missile batteries will be redeployed from frontline positions to protect strategic industrial zones in Tatarstan, the Urals, and other key regions. But here's the paradox. Every system moved to protect a factory is one less system guarding Russian troops in Donetsk, Kharkiv, or Zaporizhia. This stretches Russia thin, weakening frontline positions and exposing more areas to potential Ukrainian attacks. In trying to shield themselves, Moscow may inadvertently create new vulnerabilities. Second, Ukraine will accelerate the development of its long-range strike capabilities. The Kazan operation proved that Ukraine's long-range drone program is no longer experimental. It is operational, sophisticated, and evolving rapidly. Ukrainian engineers are now pushing forward at full speed, applying lessons from Kazan to design drones that are faster, stealthier, more precise, and capable of reaching factories near Moscow, St. Petersburg, and beyond. Began as a secretive, hidden program has now become one of Ukraine's most formidable strategic tools, a tool Russia has few defenses against. The Kazan strike was not the conclusion. It was the beginning of a new era in Ukraine's long-range warfare. Third, the psychological impact on ordinary Russians is enormous. For years, millions of citizens believed the war was distant, confined to border regions or Ukrainian soil. Illusion has been shattered. People in central and eastern Russia, areas once considered completely safe, witnessed fires, explosions, and the closure of factories on their own soil. Families ealing kilometers from Ukraine awoke to alarms, saw smoke rising from critical industrial facilities, and realized the war was no longer distant. This shift in public perception is deeply dangerous for Putin, undermining the narrative he has relied upon to justify the conflict for nearly 3 years. Baina's emergency crews struggled to control the burning ruins at the Kazan plant. One fact became unmistakably clear. Russia had suffered one of its most devastating blows since the start of the invasion. A strike launched at Ling-A.M, executed with precision and overwhelming force, did more than destroy a factory. It shattered Russia's sense of security. The strike revealed vulnerabilities Moscow had hoped the world would never see and demonstrated how far Ukraine has advanced technologically. The Kazan strike signals the start of a new strategic era, one in which Russia can no longer assume distance offers protection. Factories, military infrastructure, and even the heartland itself are vulnerable. Putin knows this. His generals know this. And now, ordinary Russians know it too. Ukraine has proven it can reach anywhere, strike with precision, and inflict damage that reverberates far beyond a single facility. This wasn't just an attack on infrastructure. It was a demonstration of technological and strategic capability. Ukraine showed that heavily fortified industrial zones deep inside Russia are no longer untouchable. The message is unmistakable. Distance does not equal safety. Russia's defenses can be bypassed, and its core military assets are vulnerable. Then the psychological, strategic, and operational impacts are profound. Moscow must contend with weakened defenses along the front, the urgent need to rebuild and protect critical factories, and the growing awareness among its citizens that the war is no longer distant. For Ukraine, the attack validates its long-range strike program and underscores its ability to reshape the battlefield at will. Inside the Kremlin, the reaction is one of alarm and recalibration. Emergency meetings, constant intelligence updates, and frantic planning signal the realization that the strategic landscape has shifted dramatically. The strike has undermined Russia's confidence, exposed the limits of its defenses, and emboldened Ukraine's resolve. This single operation marks a turning point in the war. Ukraine didn't merely hit a building, it destroyed Russia's illusion of invulnerability and altered the strategic balance. It has changed the battlefield, the minds of military planners, and the perceptions of ordinary Russians. The lessons are clear. Ukraine can strike deep, with precision, and at a scale that Moscow cannot easily counter. Distance no longer provides safety. The war has entered a new, unpredictable phase, and Russia must now confront vulnerabilities it once thought impossible. With this strike, the direction of the conflict has shifted. If you found this breakdown insightful, support continued analysis by liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications. Your engagement helps deliver these in-depth reports, keeping viewers informed and aware. Stay vigilant, stay informed,